Hello, a very good morning. Welcome to the Mega News at 6 News coming to you live from our studios on the 10th Avenue Extension, Greater Estate, Nungwa, Adugon. The news is also live across all our social media handles on MBN 360. My name is El Samuels. The headlines.
Government lays Community Service Bill 2026 before Parliament. In business, inflation drops to 3.3% in February, the lowest since the 2021 rebasing. And on the international front, U.S. sanctions Rwanda's military and top commanders over fighting in DR Congo.
Now let's move on to the details of the stories. The government has held the Community Service Bill 2026 before Parliament as part of efforts to address congestion in the country's prisons.
The proposed legislation seeks to introduce non-custodial centers for minor offences, providing alternatives to imprisonment and reducing pressure on correctional facilities. Presenting the bill for its first reading on Wednesday, 4th March, the Minister for the Interior, Mohamed Mubarak Muntaka, outlined its purpose on the floor of Parliament. Part of the reason for this bill is to help decongest our prisons and assure that people who commit minor offences are non-custodial centers instead of being incarcerated without proper means to feed and maintain them, he said. He added that the framework would allow minor offenders, such as those caught stealing items like bananas and plantains, to perform community service. This approach, he explained, would foster community unity and reduce the likelihood of repeat offences. The bill essentially sets up a framework to decongest our prisons and redirect minor offenders to community service that benefits society, he added.
Ghana's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has quietly orchestrated the relocation of the former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and the new Patriotic Party flag bearer for election 2028 and his wife Samira Bawumia from Qatar to a safer country amidst escalating tensions in the Middle East.
The apology follows a directive by the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Bernard Ahiavo, who referred the minority leader to the Privileges Committee over contempt charges after the Interior Minister accused him of making unsubstantiated claims. Mr. Afenyo-Markin alleged that the engagement of the third-party IT firm in the recruitment exercise amounted to a scam and imposed high financial cost on applicants. However, during parliamentary proceeding on Wednesday, March 4th, he formally reviewed the committee and expressed regret over the matter.
If, Mr. Speaker, the text of my concerns reflected so, it is hereby accordingly withdrawn. And, Mr. Speaker, as colleagues, when a member feels strongly about a statement which is unintended, the right thing to do is to withdraw and apologize to him. Mr. Speaker, I proceed to do so and to assure him that concerns that would arise out of any matter shall be properly brought to his attention. But on this matter, as I've said before, I will repeat it for Hamza, that anything related to him or his ministry is withdrawn. And again, apologies to him.
So that was the voice of the minority leader in Parliament, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, retracting and apologizing to the Minister for Interior, Mohamed Mubarak Muntaka. Ghana's Foreign Affairs has quietly orchestrated a relocation of former Vice President and new Patriotic Party flag bearer for election 2028, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and his wife, Samira Bawumia, from Qatar to a safe country amidst escalating tensions in the Middle East.
Sources familiar with the operation told City News that The discreet move was carried out under the direct instruction of the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, as part of precautionary measures to safeguard the former vice president and his entourage. According to sources, the Foreign Affairs Minister directed Ghanaian diplomatic mission in the region to prioritize the security of Dr. Bawumia, and his wife, embassy officials, subsequently worked closely with host authorities to facilitate smooth and confidential travel arrangements. The covert evacuation forms part of broader government efforts to protect Ghanaian nationals in the region as geopolitical tensions intensify. Meanwhile, in a statement issued on Tuesday, March 3, 2026, following a virtual meeting with Ghana's envoy in the Middle East, I convened a virtual meeting with our ambassadors and consul general in the Middle East to assess the latest developments and explore additional consular interventions towards the protection of Ghanaians. He stated, the meeting brought together heads of missions stationed in Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Iran, and Turkey, as authorities continue to monitor the situation and strengthen consular protection measures.
And on that note, we move straight to the business desk, where Ghana's year-on-year inflation rate declined further to 3.3% in February 2026, down from 3.8% in January 2026, and a sharp drop from 23.1% recorded in February 2025, according to the latest Consumer Price Index data released by the Ghana Statistical Service.
The CPI for February 2026 stood at 264.4, up from 255.9 in February 2025, translating into a year-on-year inflation rate of 3.3%. On a month-on-month basis, inflation was 0.8%, indicating that the general price level increased by 0.8% between January and February 2026. The February figure marks the 14th consecutive decline in year-on-year inflation since January 2025 and represents the lowest rate recorded since the CPI rebasing in 2021. Inflation has fallen by 19.8 percentage points over the past year. A breakdown of the data shows a significant easing in food inflation, while non-food inflation edged up slightly. Food inflation, including non-alcoholic beverages, which carries a weight of 42.7% in the CPI basket, slowed to 2.4% in February 2026 from 3.9% in January 2026, a 1.5 percentage point decline. On a month-on-month basis, food inflation was 0.2% in February, down from 1.1% in January. Non-food inflation, which accounts for 57.3% of the basket, stood at 4.0% in February 2026, compared to 3.8% in January 2026. Month-on-month non-food inflation was 1.2%, up from 0.5% recorded in January. In terms of origin, locally produced items recorded year-on-year inflation of 4.5% in February 2026, marginally higher than the 4.4% recorded in January. Month-on-month inflation for locally produced goods was 1.2%. Imported items saw inflation ease significantly to 0.6% in February 2026 from 2.0% in January, a 1.4 percentage point drop. On a month-on-month basis, imported goods recorded negative 0.02%, indicating relative price stability. Goods inflation declined to 3.2% in February from 3.7% in January, while services inflation eased to 3.7% from 4.2% over the same period. Month-on-month goods inflation was 0.94% compared to 0.03% in January, while services inflation slowed to 0.3% from 0.5%. At the regional level, the Savannah region recorded the lowest inflation rate at negative 2.6% in February 2026, while the Northeast region recorded the highest inflation rate at 8.9%. Overall, The steady drop in inflation from 23.1% in February 2025 to 3.3% in February 2026 signals a sustained easing of price pressures and points to improving macroeconomic stability.
Now, away from the business desk, we go straight to the international front, where the U.S. has imposed sanctions on Rwandan army and 4 of its senior commanders, accusing them of fueling conflict in neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo.
Fighting has persisted despite a U.S. brokered peace deal in December between the Congolese and Rwandan governments aimed at ending the long-running conflict in eastern DR Congo. The U.S. Treasury Department accused the Rwandan army of undermining the peace deal by training, equipping, and fighting alongside the M23 rebel group. Rwanda swiftly rejected the accusation, saying the sanctions had unfairly targeted one side and misrepresents the reality and distort the facts of the conflict. Kigali denies supporting the M23 despite overwhelming evidence and says its military presence in the region is a defensive measure against threats posed by armed groups in DR Congo to Rwanda's security.
On that note, we cross over to the weather center. We're bringing you the weather and its update for the next 24 hours. Stay with us. And now the weather updates. Early this morning, mist and fog patches will develop within the coastal forest and hilly areas, resulting in reduced visibility amidst partly cloudy conditions. From late afternoon into the night, rain-bearing clouds are expected to form and produce rainfall and tendering activities of varying intensities over the parts of middle, transition, and northern sectors of the country. Some towns will be affected. Meanwhile, fairly dry and hazy conditions will dominate some portions of the northern Ghana throughout the forecast period. Now let's take a look at the temperature table for the next 24 hours. A coast minimum of 25 degrees, a maximum of 33 degrees. Forest a minimum of 23 degrees, a maximum of 35 degrees. Transition minimum of 22 degrees, a maximum of 35 degrees. Northern minimum 24 degrees, maximum 39 degrees. If there's any unforeseen change in the weather pattern, we'll bring you up to speed with it. And that brings us to the end of this morning's weather updates from the MBN Weather Center and Association with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. But before we look of the news-making headlines.
Government lays Community Service Bill 2026 before Parliament. In business, inflation drops to 3.3% in February, the lowest since the 2021 rebasing. And on the international front, U.S. sanctions Rwanda's military and top commanders over fighting in DR Congo.
And that brings us to the end of this morning news essays. For more news, log on to MBN 360. The news came to you live from our studios located on the 10th Avenue Extension, Greater Estate. My name is El Samuels. Up next is a sports update.